Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session Improving Your Multi Cloud Security with a Cloud Native Application Protection Platform, CNAPP. And I am Ritika Chakraborty. I will be your host for the day. Before we get started, we would like to go over a few house rules for our attendees. The session will be in listen only mode and will last for an hour, out of which the last 10 minutes will be dedicated to Q&A. If you have any questions during the webinar to the organizers or our speaker, use the Q&A window. Also, if you face any audio video challenges, please check the chat section or you may log out and log in again. And very important announcement for our audience. We have started CPE credit certificates for our attendees. The criteria to get the CPE credit certificates, the attendees needs to attend the full webinar and then write an email to cybertalks@eccouncil.org, and we will be providing you the certificate. Also, we would like to announce about our special handouts. Take the screenshot of the running webinar and post in your social media account, LinkedIn or Twitter, tagging EC Council and use the hashtag CyberTalks. We will share free handouts to our first 10 audience. As a commitment to closing the cybersecurity workforce gap by creating multi-domain cyber technicians, EC Council pledges $3.5 million towards CCT education and certification scholarships to certify approximately 10,000 cyber professionals ready to contribute to the industry.
Did you know that you can be part of the lucrative cybersecurity industry? Even top companies like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, IBM, Facebook, and Dell all hire cybersecurity professionals. The cybersecurity industry has a 0% unemployment rate. The average salary for an entry-level cybersecurity job is about $100,000 per year in the United States. Furthermore, you don't need to know coding and learn from your home, and you get a scholarship to kickstart your career. Apply now. EC Council is pledging a $3.5 million CCT scholarship for cybersecurity career starters. Scan the QR code on the screen to apply for the scholarship. Fill out the form.
If you want to know more, kindly visit our website given in the chat section. Now about our speaker. Yuri has been working at Microsoft for the past 17 years and currently is a principal PM manager for the CXE Defender for Cloud Team. He is also a professor at EC Council University. Yuri has a Master of Science in Cybersecurity Intelligence and Forensic Investigation from Utica College and is currently working on his PhD in cybersecurity leadership from Capital Technology University. Yuri has published 31 books, mainly covering information security and Microsoft technologies. Yuri also holds many industry certifications such as CISSP, CND, CEH, ECSA, CHFI, Cybersecurity, First Responder, and MITRE ATT&CK, Cyber Threat Intelligence, and many more. So right now, without any further delay, I'm giving the mic to speaker Yuri. Over to you, Yuri.
Thank you very much for the intro. As she said, my name is Yuri Diogenes. I'm really glad to be with you here today. Thanks for joining this session. Which is about improving your multi-cloud security with Cloud Native Application Protection Platform, CNAPP. So let's go first understand what problem we are trying to solve. Well, the true problem that we are facing in the industry when it comes to cloud security is that a lot of organizations, they are working in silos. What I mean by that is they have multiple tools to manage their cloud security. And the lack of integration of cloud security tools with DevOps pipelines is creating a lot of problems. As a matter of fact, according to Microsoft Enterprise DevOps report, 54% of enterprises lack secure integration with their DevOps pipeline. With that, we also have lack of visibility into multi-cloud security posture and compliance. We've seen a growth in multi-cloud. A lot of organizations, they are not working with one cloud provider anymore. They might be working with Azure, they might be working with AWS and GCP, and they need to consolidate the secure posture management and compliance across those workloads that resides in different cloud providers. And according to Microsoft Cloud Security Priorities in Practice research, 86% of the survey secure decision makers, they think that the multi-cloud environment are not really keeping up with the cybersecurity strategy, which makes a lot of sense because they are growing the number of workloads that they have in different cloud providers, and there is not really a centralized way to manage those resources, which means that they don't have the visibility. So at the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know. So you don't know if your environment is vulnerable or not, if there are breaches occurring, and that's a problem because that increases the likelihood of breach. And according to IBM research, the global average cost of data breach in 2023 was $4.45 million, which is a 15% increase over the last 3 years, which is a lot. And I brought this data basically to emphasize that if you are not taking really care of your cloud security and this adoption growth across multi-clouds, the likelihood of compromise increases and the data breach costs can be tremendous. So we need to be vigilant about that. The traditional silo approach basically is companies, they have multiple platform. They have cloud security posture management, they have cloud workload protection platform, different tools. These are great tools, but they are different and they are not connected and they don't exchange insights, right? They have the cloud infrastructure entitlement management, they have infrastructure as code, they have data security posture management, vulnerability management, and DevOps. All these tools are extremely important, as I mentioned, but if they are not integrated, if they are not exchanging insights, now you have multiple dashboards that don't talk to each other, and you are forcing your security engineers to navigate through this mess, which becomes really complicated, not only from the operational standpoint, but threat intelligence. Because if something is happening in your infrastructure as code, if developers are pushing code, and within this code there are secrets, there are credentials, by the time that it reaches the cloud, it's too late. Now you are going to work in a reactive manner because maybe a threat actor already compromised and obtained that information. So now you need to be reactive. You need to have a good cloud workload protection platform to identify the threat actor that did something. So the intel basically is not exchanged. The signals are not exchanged across those platforms, which becomes very difficult to be more proactive and increases the likelihood of compromise. So that's when we talk about CNAPP. And CNAPP, it was a term coined by Gartner. Gartner basically identified this gap. It saw, hey, there are multiple cloud security platforms, there are multiple tools available, but these tools do not communicate with each other. And now we are creating this problematic environment that threat actors are taking advantage of it because of the lack of security cloud native applications from cloud to cloud, the disconnection between the DevOps and the cloud security, the friction. We have a lot of friction when we have multiple platforms, and the goal of CNAPP was to reduce friction. How can I quickly onboard the resources, new resources, and smoothly start to obtain information about those workloads and obtain insights about those workloads? Because if the tools are integrated, as soon as I onboard a new workload, I should be able to quickly identify the posture of that workload, identify what needs to be improved, and if there is something compromised there, I need to know quickly so I can respond. The other intent of the CNAPP is to mitigate risks from the old silo approach that I just mentioned into this new model where you have this aggregation. And here a simplified view from Gartner of what it means a CNAPP platform. So you have on the left the artifact scanning, which is something that will take place right in the beginning of the life cycle, during the development, understanding what developers are doing and how they are pushing code into production. Then there is the cloud configuration right in the middle, the foundational aspect of cloud configuration, where a lot of things such as CSPM will be there. And then you have the runtime protection. We're gonna go into the details on each one of those components now. Now, the first component on the left, let's highlight this one, is the artifact scanning. So when you are looking at, and remember, the goal of this presentation is to be extremely vendor agnostic. So I'm basically portraying here the vision established by Gartner and giving you more details. And at the end, I'm going to give some final considerations. But here I'm just emphasizing what Gartner sees as the artifact scanning. It means that you have static application security testing in place or a dynamic application security testing in place. You have API scanning, super important because API, they are everywhere. And if you don't have visibility on how APIs are called, how APIs are authenticated, you really have a problem that can expose your data. Development pipeline security posture, which is a very important concept because, as I said, during many, many years, developers and cloud security, they were not talking to each other. And that's why we created this problematic scenario where code is pushed to the cloud or provision new resources from code to cloud without security in mind and without guardrails, because the whole idea is that you identify this before it is live in the cloud. So you need to have these guardrails to better understand, okay, what is the posture of this pipeline? Is it pushing things that are risky for my environment? It is following the policies that I established. So you have to have this available, right? Next one is exposure scanning, which is composed by multiple components, right? Such as CVEs. I have to understand the common vulnerabilities that are part of my environment, because if I have Kubernetes, if I have things like that, containers, I need to understand that. Secrets, I need to have secret scanning. I need to understand if there are secrets in my code or in my infrastructure as code. I have to understand the data. Super, super important. Without knowing how sensitive it is, your data, you're going to have a problem to prioritize what is important for you. So a CNAPP must have the capability to understand and to classify the data so it can prioritize what is really important to you. Because the reality is the amount of things that is happening, mainly in a multi-cloud environment, is very massive. And the teams, they are reduced. There is not a whole lot of people to manage all this massive amount of things. So we need to think about intelligent ways to provide prioritization so that the team can do what is important for the environment, and it is critical. So sensitive data is a key component. Understanding unknown vulnerabilities. That will also important, not only the known vulnerabilities, but the unknown vulnerabilities, and also malware. So all these elements are part of the exposure scanning, which belongs to this artifact scanning pillar within the CNAPP. So that's the first one, the artifact scanning. And then one component that I'm using a different slide because it's quite big, but it's also part of the artifact scanning. So the next component on the next slide is called the attack path analysis. Now think about this. How can I obtain all this information that I scan, all these artifacts? Now, how can I rationalize this and provide to you insights that are intelligent? What I mean by intelligent is they not only look at the data and give you a list like a baseline, but they do data correlation across multiple workloads. So let's think about what this really means. The insights, they will enrich the path, the attack path. They will enrich the attack path to give you the idea of what's going to happen if a threat actor compromises resources. In the past, and many if you are in security for a long time, in the past, just doing secure baseline was enough. Oh, I'm going to follow NIST secure baseline or CIS secure baseline. You know, there were, and there still is a lot of baseline, which are important, but the baseline are static. They are static checks for hardening purpose, which again is important, but how can I go beyond that? How can I say, wow, if threat actor is able to compromise a VM that is exposed to the internet, it's going to be able to do more damage because it's going to move laterally. So when I identify a resource that can be compromised, the goal of the attack path analysis is show you that, of course, but also provide insights, details. Oh, this VM, you know, not only this VM is exposed to the internet, but this VM has high severity vulnerabilities that were not patched. And one of these vulnerabilities allow remote code execution. And this VM also has read and write permission in a storage account. So all this information is super relevant for you to understand what the level of damage that can be done if a threat actor gain access to this VM. Now, the attack path needs to look to the entire end-to-end story. So it will connect the VM with the storage, because here it says storage account. But to get to the storage account, it has to go through a gateway because the storage account is not exposed to the internet. But the gateway in between has no access control list. So this VM has full access to the storage account. And the storage account, as you can see here, right, it has sensitive information. Now, this is critical. Any CNAPP solution that you are evaluating must have this capability. So this is super critical because this is the differentiating factor that a true CNAPP has. Be able to connect the dots, be able to give the insights of each workload so that you can make smart decisions. Because now it's not only about, hey, here are 100 high severity vulnerabilities that you need to address. No. Out of those 100, which ones do I need to do it now? Because I cannot address 100 at the same time. I have to prioritize my workload. I have to prioritize what my engineers are going to do. Tell me which ones are critical according to the attack path analysis. So now I have a better understanding of if this VM get exploited, it can access PII, for example, in this storage account. So this is game changer on the CNAPP because it's using all the artifact scanning capabilities that were collected before to rationalize the insights and give you this information. So make sure that when you are evaluating your CNAPP strategy, you have this in place. The other component of the CNAPP architecture is the cloud configuration. which is foundational look at the cloud configuration. As you can see, it looks at infrastructure as code scanning. Does the CNAPP solution has infrastructure as code scanning built in, and doing the work that's supposed to do is scanning the code and look for potential compromise and potential misconfiguration or lack of best practices. So it needs to be there. It needs to have network configuration security policy. It needs to be integrated with the cloud infrastructure entitlement management. It's not only about, hey, we actually have a connection with the CAN, the cloud infrastructure entitlement management. No. I want you to be fully integrated. I want you to get those insights and be part of the infrastructure. You have to have cloud security posture management, CSPM, which for a long time was its own category. It now becomes an integral part of CNAPP. So CSPM becomes part of CNAPP within the cloud configuration pillar. Same thing for Kubernetes secure posture management. Kubernetes is a category on its own. It needs to have its own secure posture management, and data secure posture management, which deals with the sensitivity of the data. It deals with data classification, understanding the status of the data. This again is critical to be natively part of the platform. Needs to be natively part of the platform, because again, it will look not only from the configuration perspective, but will provide insights that will be used in the attack path, right? So you need to have this as part of the cloud configuration within the CNAPP platform. The last one is the runtime visibility protection, which is the other pillar. And this one is actually looking for a more reactive way. Every time that we say runtime, we are talking about things that are happening at the workload itself. So for example, you have a web application, or you have a web application that makes call to API, or you have an API management platform. How are you protecting those resources? How do you know if a threat actor is actively doing something malicious on those workloads? So you have to have also cloud workload protection platform, CWPP, bake it in to the CNAPP strategy. So this is not an add-on component. This is natively part of the platform. But you have to take that into consideration as well. And the other one is the exposure scanning and attack path analysis. Exposure scanning is basically a capability that allows the platform to understand how threat actors are visualizing your resources from outside, because vulnerability scanning, vulnerability management scanning usually is within the environment, right? For example, I'm gonna run a scan on my environment. Okay, you are running this scanning capability within the context of being internal, which is fine. But what about running from the outside and doing some reconnaissance from the outside? That's what exposure scanning is gonna look at. It will basically tell you how the threat actors perceives your company from the outside, and then build intelligent path analysis based on this information as well. All right, so we know the components, we know what are the elements that belongs to each component. Now, one thing that is important, because we were talking about runtime, the runtime piece of the CNAPP really integrates and really can be leveraged with your incident response team. Because remember, there will be different teams that will take advantage of the insights from the CNAPP. So if we think about our organizational structure, you're going to have the cloud security team that is going to look at informations that are in the artifact scanning, information that are on the cloud configuration. They are going to consume more of that. Why? Because they are looking at preventative control, proactive posture management. So they are looking more to how to reduce the likelihood of compromise. Now, if we think about the mindset of assuming breach, which is everyone is going to get compromised at some point, the question is how fast can you detect and how fast can you respond? And that's where the insights from the runtime, which are part of the CWPP, will come into play when it integrates with IR. So the IR, from the IR perspective, what I need is I need to have detection and response from my development pipeline, as well as the cloud detection and response. So not only this horizontal, but vertical as well. They need to have threat detection that takes in consideration those elements, and this information can be streamed to your SIEM platform. And I want to make sure that this is clear, because there is a lot of people that they are confusing CNAPP as a SIEM replacement. That's not the case. These are two different things, so please do not confuse. It's very clear in this diagram that the insights from the runtime visibility and protection can be leveraged by the SIEM. And it will be, because you are going to funnel, you're going to stream all these alerts to your SIEM platform, so that your incident response team can consume that and make a smart decision when it comes to investigation. But this is post attempt of compromise, right? This is during an attack, a potential attack, when you have indications of an attack, indications of compromise. That's where the IR team is going to operate, because the attack path analysis is not for the IR team. The attack path analysis is for the cloud security team to consume, because they are looking to potential entries and how to close those entries so that attackers cannot get into the environment. So I hope that this distinction is super clear. So that's another capability that you need to look at it when it comes to CNAPP's strategy. So with that framework and general overview of the architecture and the components, let's go through some considerations when choosing a CNAPP strategy. First of all, it's not only about multi-cloud. It's important, but it's much more than that. While as I mentioned before, a lot of companies, they are adopting this multi-cloud strategy to have workloads distributed across multiple cloud providers. The reality is that customers, they still have a lot of on-premise resources, and you cannot ignore on-premises, which means that when you are adopting a CNAPP strategy, you have to ask the vendor, what is your strategy to monitor on-premise resources? Because at the end of the day, I want to have one single dashboard to manage not only my cloud, but my on-premise. Ideally, that's what I want. I want to be able to see VMs that are on-prem and see the security posture of those VMs. I want to have this in a single place. Does your vendor offers that? Contextual prioritization. So the insights that were obtained through those artifact scanning, are they utilized to build and to correlate and to contextualize across all the workloads? That's super important. And that why it is important, because it is with those insights that the attack path is built. So you need this data correlation, you need this contextualization, because this is what is going to help your engineers, your cloud security administrators to do a better job and be more agile when it comes to proactive posture management. So you need to have this right from the get-go. Ideally, this should be very frictionless. What I mean by that is it shouldn't really require installation of agents and everything. You should have this almost like agentless, in which you are in onboarding workloads, and the information just start flowing, because one of the characteristics of the cloud, as you know, defined by NIST, is to be dynamic and to be elastic. So resources are going to be provisioned and destroyed all the time. You need a platform that is able to quickly onboard, get you some insights, and allow you to make decisions with those insights. Identity is not only about connection with a CIN, a cloud infrastructure and title management. It's about be part of that platform, is fully integrated, is it natively integrated with the CIN, or it just allow communication and export of information. There's a big difference there, because when it is natively integrated, the insights will start to flow better. You're gonna have much more options to take smart decision when it comes to entitled management within the CNAPP platform. The other thing that is important is tailored detections for different workloads. What I mean by that is there are lots of different workloads in the cloud: storage account, databases, right? App services, DNS, resource manager capabilities, and all that. Each workload, VMs, of course, each workload has its own threat landscape. The attack surface of one workload is not the same as the other. So you cannot lift and shift. You cannot get your traditional IDS or IPS or NDS that you have on-prem and just move to the cloud and expect to have the same result, because it was not tailored for those workloads. So try to understand how your CNAPP vendor is building the analytics that will give you the alerts for those workloads. Okay, that's critical, because as I said, a lot of companies that are investing a lot on creating analytics that are very tailored to each workload. And this is super important, because threat actors, they already understand that a Kubernetes has different attack methods when compared to a database. The attack surface is different, the threat landscape is different, so they know how to navigate through that. If you don't have detections that also understand those nuances, then it's not going to be effective. So you need this level of accuracy. So the CNAPP solution must be able to leverage cloud native threat detection tailored for that specific workload. And it should be easy to stream this information for your SIEM platform, because again, this is reactive. So who is going to deal with this? Well, your SOC is going to deal with those alerts. Your incident response is going to deal with those alerts. So if you have a platform that creates a lot of false positive, this is just going to create noise for your SOC. And they are already busy with a lot of things, and now they have to deal with a lot of false positive. Is not a good strategy, right? So make sure that when you make the decision when it comes to the threat detection capability within the CNAPP, you take those points into consideration. The other one is proactive hunting. This is awesome. Is one of the most cooler things in the CNAPP, because the term hunting for a long time, it was well known within the secure operations team, within the SOC, Secure Operations Center, right? Because they do that within their SIEM platform, but they do threat hunting. Proactive hunting for posture management is a little bit different, because what I'm doing here is I'm trying to predict the probability that someone is going to take advantage of a scenario that my environment fits in. Let's say, for example, that there is a 0 day in the wild, and the researchers already found that the 0-day, in order to really be dangerous, it needs to have access through the internet to VMs that have port, 22 open. Just a fictitious example. And not only that, but it also needs to have vulnerabilities X, Y, and Z that were not patched. A series of variables must be in place for this piece of malware to really take advantage and compromise. So now you have all the variables. If the CNAPP offers you a way to query your infrastructure and understand if you fit that scenario, that's the ideal scenario. Because remember, the CNAPP already collected all the information through the artifact scanning, already scanned everything. So the data is there. The proactive hunting basically is, let me query this data and try to connect the dots for this scenario. Do I have this scenario based on my data? Let's say, for example, that I start my query, say, list all machines that have port 22 open. And then 100 machines came as a result of the query. And now I said, and that have these two CVEs also unpatched. Boom, now I have 10 as a result. So I already narrow from 100 to 10. Now I'm going to the third and also have this, and that, well, any other variable. Boom, now I have only 2 machines. So I was able to, from a universe of 100 machines on my first query, narrow to 2 machines. And now I know that these 2 are the ones that I have to worry about. So proactive hunting in the sense of posture management is leveraging the data that was collected through artifact scanning to give me the power to query in those scenarios. So this is really a more advanced capability. The reality is some companies are not even ready for that because their level of cloud maturity is not there. Usually the team that manages the proactive hunting does not even exist. So they have to aggregate everything that cloud security team does and say, hey, from now on, not only you're going to do all this, but you're also going to do proactive hunting of posture management. So this is important, and your platform should allow you to do that. So as a conclusion, what we have here is the following. CNAPP is here to stay. It will continue to evolve in different areas, including integration with AI. It's not going to be too long when we start seeing a lot of these capabilities that I mentioned, proactive hunting and things like that, that may have integrations with AI to be more intelligent, even more proactive, right? And not only that, but also help to help you with the remediation. So this scenario is something that is going to continue to evolve. When you are planning your CNAPP adoption, it's very important that you look not only into the current feature set that the vendor is offering, but also the roadmap to the future, how vendors are planning to evolve. Where are they investing? Because when you are comparing multiple vendors, multiple CNAPP vendors, and you only look at the current feature set without really knowing where are you going to invest in the next 6-12 months, which direction are you going, this can help you to say, oh, I'm actually going with the vendor C. I totally understand that vendor A has a better feature set now, but the direction that vendor C is going, to me, seems way more promising and more aligned with my perspective, with my company, and with where we want to go as well. So this is super important. Don't get so rigid when it comes to comparing feature by feature. Comparing feature by feature is not the way to go, mainly in this space that is continuously evolving, right? Very important. Make sure to understand your company needs and what do you really want to accomplish by adopting a CNAPP strategy. What are you trying to resolve now, and what is your vision moving forward? Because this is also going to help you with alignment. Alignment when it comes to strategy of your vendor and how that aligns with your own strategy, right? So this is super important for you to rationalize as you keep this momentum in the decision about which CNAPP solution you should adopt. The reflection of all these will actually dictate which solution is better for you and for your company. So this is a exercise that I've seen a lot of customers they miss because they come to the discussion without even know what they want, because they really didn't do the rationalization and the self-assessment to understand their current mode and what is the vision moving forward. Okay. And with that, I'm going to open for Q&A.
Thank you so much, Yuri. It was a great presentation. Actually, for that reason, uh, we generally get so many multiple questions in between, but it was so descriptive. That's why we got only few questions as of now. So for our audience, please post your questions in the Q&A box. Before we start the Q&A, today's webinar is in sync with our CCSE certification, the Certified Cloud Security Engineer CCSE certification, a hands-on certification course designed and developed by cloud security professionals. The CCSC adopts a detailed and methodological approach to teach fundamental concepts in cloud security. EC Council CCSC program combines vendor-neutral and vendor-specific cloud security concepts to offer aspiring cloud security professionals an unbiased learning approach. Benefits of the CCSE course includes helps learners design and implement business continuity and disaster recovery plans in the cloud, demonstrates best practices for securing cloud infrastructures. If you are interested to learn more about CCSC, please take part in the poll which is going to conduct now. Now we will be taking our question. Should we start, Yuri?
Sure.
Our first question is, how is cloud security is different from traditional security concepts?
Well, in the cloud security space, first of all, it's way more dynamic. You have way more freedom for the end user to provision a resource, because according to the cloud security concepts, the user must be able to provision. So in a traditional environment, is very rigid. It's the IT that is provisioning things. When a user needs a computer, they need to open a ticket, and the computer is given to them. With the cloud security is more dynamic. Users, they provisioning things, and the threat landscape is different, right? Because you have this gigantic scenario where you have multiple resources and different types of resources, and it is different from this dynamic perspective. The threat landscape, the way that threat actors are able to access resources is more distributed, and there are other elements that are part of what we call the shared responsibility. Depending on the cloud model, you as a customer, you have a lot of responsibility. For example, if you are using an infrastructure as a service, IaaS, you own that the VM, you own the operating system. But if you are using a SaaS, software as a service, then the cloud provider is responsible for a lot of the things. The point is you have to understand the shared responsibility model, where you as a customer needs to include security and where the cloud provider needs to provide the security. This is a completely different model from the on-premise, because on-premise, you own everything, right? On the on-premise, you own the entire environment. So there is no such a thing as shared responsibility. I mean, it's your it's your problem, you deal with it, right?
Thank you, Yuri, for the answer. Our second question is, do we have any info of who have successfully implemented and enjoyed the success of CNAPP solution?
If you have, can you repeat the question, please?
That is, do we have any info of who have successfully implemented and enjoyed success of CNAPP solutions?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you go to actually there is a page under Gartner, if you want to look at across different vendors, because of course each vendor will have its own page when it comes to success stories. So you can go to Microsoft, you can go to Palo Alto and other vendors page to look at success stories. And you also can go to Gartner and research for CNAPP, and there you will see a lot of testimonies from customers about the different CNAPP solutions that they adopt.
Okay, so our next question is it more secure to run a cloud-based service, cloud-based servers, or is it more secure to run hybrid system servers?
The question is not is more secure. I think that the question needs to be positioned about where are you at your journey, because the first question is, if you are in hybrid, it means that you have resources on premise and in the cloud. Now the question is this a temporary transitional? Are you going to move everything to the cloud at some point or not? Because the security considerations are different. If you have a hybrid environment, you need to understand not only the security state of your on-premise workloads, but as well as cloud and the communication channel. Now, this might be transitory, right? Because you might be in this journey to the cloud to move the resource to the cloud so that at some point you be cloud only. So it begs the question, is this a final phase of your project, or is just one part of the project? So it's not about what is more secure, it's more which stage of the journey you are, and the secure considerations are different. The secure considerations are different.
Thanks for the clarification, Yuri. So we will be taking last two questions. Our next question is, what is the contribution of the CNAPP to DevSecOps?
Well, it's gigantic because DevSecOps in the past was still isolated. DevSecOps did include security, and that's why it says DevSecOps, but it did not make the connection with cloud and code to cloud. So the contribution is not only helping that environment be more agile, but be more secure and pushing code to the cloud. So the CNAPP strategy fits right in because it fulfilled this gap. Because you could have DevSecOps in an isolated silo, and that's the thing about the silo, right? With the CNAPP, DevSecOps becomes just one more component within this realm of other technologies that can be used to make better decisions. Remember about the attack path. Well, without CNAPP and only DevSecOps, I couldn't do attack path that took in consideration, for example, hey, your GitHub repository has secrets. And you know what? If an attacker compromises VM, it can access this repository. I would never be able to do this correlation without the CNAPP, right? So it's a huge contribution.
Thank you, Yuri. Our last question is, what is the major difference between traditional pen testing and cloud security?
Well, it just changed the environment actually, right? Because the traditional pen test was focusing only on-prem. So the pen test methodology, the pen test as a professional is not going to change that much. The tools and the approach change, but it's still pen test, right? So it only another platform. So if you remember, even before cloud, when we started the whole virtualization, this question came up as well. What is the difference between pen test in a bare metal machine and in a Hyper-V? Well, you just need to take in considerations the virtualization characteristics, the art, the task of pen test, and the professional and the role are still the same. It just changed the platform. You just need to understand that you have a new platform to exploit. You probably need different tools, but the role is still the same. It's just different platforms.
Thank you, Yuri. Actually, we have got one last questions we have to take. According to you, which one is good among the AWS, Azure, and Google?
Uh, as y'all know, I was introduced in the beginning of the presentation as someone that's been working at Microsoft for 17 years. So when you ask me this question, of course, there is a bias from my side. So I am not a sales guy. I'm not here to sell anything. That's why this presentation was vendor agnostic. So instead of me telling you which one is better, I always give back this question, say you need to be the one that evaluates the security capabilities of all these providers. You do a proof of concept and you see which one is better for what you need. Okay, because some customers may say, well, I prefer to work with Azure because everything that I have on premise Microsoft, the integration is better. Someone else says, no, I already started my cloud journey in AWS. For me, AWS is better. It varies according to your needs, right? So here, I'm here to give you the vendor agnostic approach on how to make the decision. So I'll give you with that.
Great. Thank you so much, Yuri, for all the answers and clarifying so many doubts of our audience and the great presentation. Uh, it was a pleasure to have you with us, and
Thank
we
you.
are looking for more and more session with you.
Thank you.
So before we conclude the webinar, Yuri, would you like to give a small message to our audience?
Oh, well, as I said, I think that at this point in time, y'all need to really start working on proof of concepts and understanding the capabilities that are available on each cloud provider and see how that fits the needs of your company. I think that this presentation is very helpful because it gives you this vendor agnostic overview. So I hope it was beneficial to y'all.
Thank you so much for the message, Yuri. Before we end the session, I would like to announce our next Cyber Talk session, AI's current and future impact on password-based attacks, is scheduled for 21st September 2023, which is tomorrow, by Rico Danielson. This session is a expert presentation. To register for this session, please go to our website, which is www.eccu.edu/cyber-talks. The link is given in the chat section. Hope to see you all tomorrow here, and now you may disconnect your line. Thank you so much. Thank you, Yuri.
Thank you.